بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ونصلي ونسلم على أشرف الخلق محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته أما بعد. In this next hadith, the 13th hadith, we have the hadith of Jabir radiallahu anhu. قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من حفر ماء لم يشرب منه كبد حر من جن ولا إنس ولا سبع ولا طائر إلا آجره الله يوم القيامة ومن بنى مسجدا لله ولو كمفحص قطاط أو أصغر بنى الله له به بيتا في الجنة. In this hadith that is authentically narrated by Imam Ibn Khuzaymah and also في الترغيب والترهيب, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions two things. As we see that the whole series is basically focusing on two things, but different aspects. The first of what he mentions, may Allah's peace and blessings forever and always be upon him, is this aspect where he says, whoever digs a hole for water, that there's not a person or there's not a living thing, and this is what the term kabidun harra, talking about the liver, in the sense that that which has a liver and it is hot and it is moist and it is, the sign of life, that there's not a living thing, whether it be from the jinn, and we know that the jinn are those beings that Allah created prior to us of pure smokeless fire, that there's not a jinn or anyone from the humans, nor anything from as-sabur, which are basically the wild animals, or a ta'ir, yani those that are birds. So nothing from anything of all of these different categories of jinn, of humans, of wild animals, of those things that also fly, of birds, except that because of this deed, ajarahullah, that Allah will reward that person yawm al-qiyamah. And it mentions most specifically on Judgment Day, in the hereafter, in the life after this world. To dig for water, to make water available, and especially when we again take a look at the context, ahibba, of the society that the Prophet ﷺ came from. It was a society founded in the Arabian Peninsula, which was desert. Water was perhaps the most precious of resources, and because it was the scarcest of them, really. That water, a person who digs for water and makes it available, that the reward for this person is that Allah on Judgment Day will reward them, and Allah Azza wa Jal is the best to reward. The second thing that's mentioned is that there is not a person who builds for Allah a masjid, a house for Allah to be worshipped. And then the Prophet ﷺ gives a similitude, a parable, an example, saying, وَلَوْ كَمَفْحَصِ قَطَاتٍ, even if it be like the nest for the specific bird, al-qatat, which in the Arabic, it's a bird that's kind of similar to a pigeon. And if I'm not mistaken, the actual English word for it was a Scarborough. Anyway, it's kind of like a pigeon, like a desert pigeon. So the Prophet ﷺ is saying that even if it be as small and as simple as the nest of this bird, but that the person, or even smaller, or asghar, that Allah will, because of that, build for them a house in paradise, in heaven. That house in heaven is the result of the house that was built for Allah in this world. The masjid lillah. And it's clear that this is something that the intention is done specifically, purposefully for Allah. Not that it's done because the person wants to have their name on it, or that the person wants to become prominent and known, that they were the ones who built the masjid, that they were the ones who did it. It doesn't really even matter to them in that sense of whether they're known or they remain completely anonymous. The point is that the good deed itself is completed, it is done, and it is done sincerely for Allah, regardless of how small, regardless of how simple, it's about the quality that is founded truly within the intention and that sincerity, not so much the quality of really the building and the structure itself, that Allah will amply reward this person with a house in paradise. And subhanAllah, we can all imagine that there's no comparison between how Allah, the Exalted, reciprocates anything of what we ourselves do. A house in paradise compared to a house in this world. There are some narrations that mention that the house is going to be baytan min ad-durri wal yaqut, that the house in paradise is going to be of the most precious of different stones and jewels, of pearls and of rubies and so on and so forth. When we think about these two things that the Prophet ﷺ is mentioning, we see that the Prophet ﷺ so purposefully brought the two together. When we think about water, we know that water is the source for life, that it is absolutely essential for life. And in the same way that the masjid, that it is also absolutely essential for spiritual life. For that spiritual life which is founded in intellectual Islamic knowledge, authentic knowledge of the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that in the same way that water is the source of life and it can save a person from death, especially given the circumstances of the climate of the desert, in the same way that a person who strives to do something good for the creation around them, to help them in the best of ways, to provide water for them, the source of life, in the same way that the person who also strives to do something good for the people, that gives them life, but that spiritual life, by providing for them this place where they can learn about the religion, where they can practice this, where they can worship Allah and Allah alone. And we know that this is exactly what Allah commands from us, that there is no one, that there is nothing that is to be worshipped and believed in alongside with Allah, that He is one in His existence and one in His right to be worshipped. They are both so essential and so important that the reward for both of these are things that Allah in the hereafter on Judgment Day is going to by Himself undertake the reward, the full measure for these people who undergo this, who do this. This hadith is telling us about the importance of being concerned with the well-being of others. And from the hadith we see that it's not just about humans, but we see that from the first half of it, to even be concerned about everything else of Allah's creation. To be concerned about being of benefit and of help, and to do what we can, even with regards to the animal world around us, to the environment. And these are teachings, brothers and sisters, that if we think about it, these are way ahead of their time. Way before anything of the green movement and anything of, for nature and humanity or habitats and all of this type of stuff came into existence. Allah the Exalted through His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam are telling us that the Muslim needs to be a source of blessings for everyone and for everything. And this is true, subhanallah, in what they care about of the material things, as well as what they care about with regards to those spiritual, immaterial things. And in doing this, the believer is encouraged and is very highly motivated by the teaching of this hadith and the reward, the ample reward of what they should expect from Allah on Judgment Day. So brothers and sisters, those whom Allah has blessed with material well-being, be sure to use it in a way that is going to be of service to those around you. And in the end, ultimately, it becomes to your own benefit and service on the day when you will stand before Allah and you will be asked about your life in this world, and you'll have those sincere deeds and acts that you make sure you do especially and very clearly, sincerely, genuinely for Allah, that you will be well pleased with yourself of the reward that Allah has prepared. And we ask Allah the Exalted to bless and help each and every one of us to do all that we can, no matter how big or how small it may appear, but let it be genuinely, sincerely for the love of Allah and for the love and help of Allah's creation. Innahu subhanahu wa ta'ala waliyun sami'un mujibu da'awat. وصلى اللهم وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.